hailing from Serbia on posterity. Give it up for Konstantin Svilokos.
Good afternoon, everybody. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Thus begins one of the greatest legal documents of the world, and this Constitution truly has changed a lot of people's lives. And look, it is very important. It asks a very good question that we almost always overlook. We always talk about law, liberty, and government, but why do we, as the preamble of this Constitution says, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity? Why posterity? What compels the person right next to you to secure anything for what comes after them? Let us first try to find the root of this love for posterity. Let's try to see it, to hear it, and to feel it. And where else can we do so but in fellow creatures of God? Somewhere tonight, a mother will skip her dinner so her child can eat. She doesn't need reason or philosophy. She just does it, and she will be happy about it. Parents, raise your hand if you would like to make a sacrifice for your own child. Exactly. A lot of parents sacrifice for their child, and we as humans have gone through numerous catastrophes. Look, we've gone through disease, we've gone through famine, we've gone through volcanic eruptions, and yet, how are we still alive? I ask you, how did we survive all of these catastrophes? Because someone chose to feed a child before feeding themselves. Unknowingly, They were protecting us. They were protecting us. It came naturally. However, none of this explains why we choose to fight for our posterity. Why do we choose to fight for people who will never know our name? Each one of you here carries a flame deep within. This flame is a sum of every hope and every sacrifice that has been indebted to us. This hope, this sacrifice, you received from your parents. Each one of us received this flame from our parents through love, care, and wisdom. Tomorrow, when I return home, my mom will hug me. And unknowingly, she will pass on the same flame she had received. And through every joyful and painful moment, we will transfer our flame to our children. None of us have ever met posterity, yet every road we build, every law we defend, and every child we teach is an act of faith. An act of faith in someone who will never know us. Posterity has already met us, and the future has no voice. We speak for it. As John Adams said, posterity, you will never know how much the present generation sacrificed in order to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make a good deal of it. We are all parts of a chain. Alone, insignificant. Together, linked through the ages, we are powerful. And between the fading light of those before us and the dawn of those after us, we are carrying this flame. And in a world completely different from Adam's, the great Persian philosopher Rumi has once said, "A candle never loses any of its light while lighting up another candle." You are not just living your life. You are carrying a flame. Make it count for those whose flame is yet to be lit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your speech. In the spirit of the U.S. Constitution, I'd like to give the audience some liberty to ask some questions here today. We'll take a question on the left.
Hi, lovely speech. Just now in your speech, you talk about parent sacrifices and the unconditional love. And my question to you is, what happens when empathy comes in excess? And I'm here reminded by an article that I read a couple years ago on the perils and danger of it, because to empathize someone, to some extent, we have to erase and neglect whom we are in order to accept ontologically the other parts of ourselves. We cannot empathize everyone. So what should we do in response to that?
Great question. That's one I've been waiting for. Empathy is something that has to be in moderation. Ben Franklin said that the greatest virtue is moderation. And just like, for example, having money, or just like, for example, being a glory seeker, you need to be in moderation. Because if you hug your child too much, it may actually go spoiled. It may think, okay, I'm secure now. My mom will protect me forevermore. Whereas the job of a parent is actually to show their child what to do, because they have this flame. And this flame has shown us how to defeat catastrophes. So if we want to do so, parents, please tell your children to be independent. My mom has always been telling that. She told me that I have to be independent, both in thinking and in doing. And if you're not, what are we then? We're just slaves to either society or someone else. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much for that second question. We're going to be taking a question from the front row right here.
Great job. I really, really loved your speech. So in most of your speech, you made reference to the light of a parent's love being the catalyst of the child's flame. But what if the child doesn't have a loving parent? How can that child light their own flame?
Thank you. That's another question I've been waiting for. Parenting and parents, we have to take a more wide definition for this. Of course, there are children who are born completely unknowingly of who their parents are. But parents can also be tutors. Our oracy coaches were some sort of parents because they taught us how to be independent, what to do, how to do. And it is important, that's a very good question, because it is very important to understand that we have to help each other. Of course, we shouldn't be patronizing someone, but in a spirit of common parenting of mankind, we have to help each other and show how to do things, because otherwise that flame may actually go away forevermore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Without further ado, last but not least, our third question from the audience. Let's see. We have one in the middle, right here.
Thank you. Very interesting subject. You mentioned the US Constitution, and to inject a note of controversy into today's proceedings, you could argue that the Constitution of the United States is in grave danger and under threat. What do you do when your candle starts guttering and is in severe danger of being snuffed out?
Thank you for that question. It's one that I actually...
I know you anticipated it.
No. It's actually one that I think about quite a lot because I did my senior thesis in high school on the American Revolution. And I wrote a 150 pages long work on the American Revolution, including a 30 pages analysis of the Constitution. Cicero wrote that the greatest virtue of a Republican, of someone who wants to be for a republic, he has to be virtuous. He has to fight for justice, he has to fight for liberty, and he has to fight for property, as Jean Locke put it, because that is what the government is for. And of course, United States of America and many other countries, including Serbia, have had a lot of crises. Don't forget, the Americans went through a civil war, and they still survived, thanks to a lot of very virtuous men, including Abe Lincoln. So it is our job, no matter what our position actually is, it is our duty and job to be virtuous, because most of us live in democracies. And it is extremely important to speak out, to say something, and actually go out, talk to the people, talk to your members of parliament, talk to your council members, go out and talk to them, because through communication, this flame just grows and grows and grows. And we cannot forget the American Revolution was one very big flame. It was such a big flame that it influenced literally every single country afterwards, no matter the continent. And this flame is truly something that can arise from discourse, because the American Revolution had a lot of printing of books. And that is exactly what you have to do, talk. Thank you.